And what's the piece about marketing that interests you?
To me, honestly, it's the ability to contribute to a brand strategy, to interpret market research, to hear, how customers and how the external world is viewing your particular product, and taking that and say, okay, well, how can we put a strategy around this product? How can we reach, in the case of pharma, how can we reach all of the people who could benefit from this product?
Hello and welcome to the Dumb It Down podcast, breaking down the disconnect between school and work for engineers and more. I'm your host, Eric Larson, and today I am joined by Stephen Haskell, a good buddy of mine, long term friend, and I'm privileged to have a bunch of these on so far. I've known Stephen for a long time, and we've certainly got a story documented by the depths of the YouTube archives that I thought we'd open with. So, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Absolutely, Eric. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be on the podcast today. Like you said, been friends for a long time. I was thinking about it. I think freshman year of high school, so that takes us back quite a bit. But you're absolutely correct about the YouTube video archiving a little bit of our friendship along the way. So Eric and I, along with my twin brother John, we went viral on YouTube about 10 or 11 years ago for a project for AP chemistry. So we actually had two of these where we had to make a music video. Well, we took this assignment and we really took it to heart. And so if you search for my name on YouTube, you'll see it. An incredible way to learn chemistry, because Eric here, who wrote the lyrics of the lyrics are actually relevant to the topics of learning chemical bonds, periodic table trends. You just have to check it out. You got to see it to believe it. But it's on there, and we went viral about 10 years ago. So that's always a great conversation starter for sure.
Let's go. What a great sales job there. Yeah, if you are curious about the periodic trends, go to YouTube and check us out. Or if you are just interested in seeing our embarrassing high school selves, you can do the same thing. And it's funny because for those, I was the lyricist, as Stephen mentioned. Stephen was the audio guy, and John was the video guy. And I just got all this brand new podcast equipment for Christmas. Shout out my sister Vanessa and her fiance Harrison. And I feel way more legit. And Stephen's like talking me through the audio on his side too. So great time to talk to Steve and have a podcast.
Absolutely. So we're going to throw some auto tune now on the podcast, right? No.
Honestly, what if we could do a little bit of this?
Oh, we've got some effects. You've got some effects. I don't think I have them though, right? That's okay. I'm the guest. You should have the effects, Eric.
However, you have the content today. So we'll dig right in. So Steven and I have gone back a long time. In high school, we were in some of the same science classes, as you heard, and math classes, and that led me to engineering. And Steven, where did that lead you? Take us back to senior year.
Yeah, so senior year of high school, I'd say always interested in the sciences. As you just mentioned, Eric, we were in a lot of those classes together: physics, chemistry, biology. Always just kind of where I gravitated, and I always knew I wanted to do something in science. But it wasn't actually until I got to college where I connected that to trying to become an engineer. So it was actually sophomore year of college, a little bit later than most, I would say, where I realized, you know what, let's take all of this and become an engineer. So by the time I got to college, I was a huge UNC Chapel Hill fan. Go Heels! So of course that was my number one school. Got there, and they're not known for engineering. I think NC State down the road, as you and a bunch of our friends went to. Definitely more of the engineering school, but Chapel Hill had started this biomedical engineering program. It was the first engineering degree offered by UNC, and what kind of drew me to that is, I'd say, the biomedical sciences, how the interface between the physical body and also just all of the great advances of technology that we're seeing over the last few years and continue to see. So things like prosthetics and bringing making new possibilities where none previously existed. So that fascinated me. And since UNC was just kind of getting that started, decided to jump right into it. My sophomore year of college, finished my degree, and just absolutely loved it. Now, funny story about that program. Actually, it's a joint department with NC State. So a little bit of taking the best of both worlds, right? Combining it together into a joint department for biomedical engineering here in the Triangle. So was just honestly it's a fantastic program, and really really enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll stop you before we get too ahead of ourselves. But it's nice that we do get a program with the best of both worlds because I went to state and our bitter rival is UNC, although Stephen would beg to differ. So we, of course, have some fun with that.
I'll acknowledge the rivalry. I'll acknowledge the rivalry.
He's a good sport. Um, so, okay, so you're a senior and you wanted to go to Chapel Hill, and basically that's why you picked biomedical. There's some fascination there, but that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
Right.
UNC is very much known for its healthcare system, and that was always in the back of my mind. My mom had worked in healthcare, was always interested in it, and just science kind of connecting the dots right there. So I knew knowing UNC had a great healthcare program and initiative, and biomedical engineering just being new and fascinating. That's really what drew me to pursue that degree.
So if Chapel Hill had had chemical engineering, you would not have done that.
Well, so they did, and so they had a couple of different other options
Okay.
related to
Oh,
it. Not
that's
not
right.
s-
That's right.
not nearly to the degree of say NC State or something along those lines, but biomedical just being new, and that's kind of where my heart was. I had done some research on it, some background with studying it, and I think just the making advances like prosthetics was a big deal breaker for me. Just seeing how you could change people's lives, 3D printing to making new artificial organs for individuals. The
Yeah.
possibilities were limitless, and that just really really drew me to it.
And so you're doing this research as a senior, or this is kind of as you're getting your feet wet in classes?
Yeah, I'd say senior in high school, leading into to freshman year, I took a lot of the general education requirements. Was trying to figure it out. Do I want to go into econ or business? Do I want to continue with my science background? And as we'll talk a little bit about it, it kind of comes full circle here in the last few years.
Well, perfect. Yeah. No, I think we can get right into it. So let's draw the circle.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. so, so fast forward a couple years, I absolutely loved biomedical engineering, but kind of those. Now we're fast forward to senior year of college. I'm in the lab. I'm working on a lot of projects, which I absolutely loved, but a lot of intense projects, syringe pumps, EKG tests, just ranging all across the board in the world of biomedical engineering.
And these are assigned projects. This isn't like an internship or research on the side. This is part of your coursework.
It's part of coursework, but we had flexibility in what we wanted to do. So,
Okay.
we had like kind of a scope of what we were trying to do, and then we had a little bit of flexibility in how we got there.
Cool. All right. Sorry to cut you off.
No, no, you're totally good. And I loved all of that. It was great. But I realized deep down, as I see myself as a professional, as a young professional, do I want to be in the lab or do I want to be in the office out there talking to people? And I realized that I wanted more of the latter. I wanted to be more in an office setting, talking to people in the business world. Having pursued a degree, an incredible degree, I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. I knew I wanted to do something in the sciences, but I didn't know exactly what yet. So as I'm thinking through my senior year, I'm looking for jobs. I'm trying to figure it all out. I realized, pharmaceuticals as an industry was the perfect way to bring all of that together. So I became very interested in the world of pharmaceuticals. I ended up joining GSK, which was my first job out of college. Have been with the GSK ever since. Currently with Vive Healthcare, and I've just really really loved the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah. Before we go a little farther, so pharmaceuticals, can you define pharmaceuticals for us? More than just what the industry's about, like how your interest, like you just said, oh, so biomedical, my interest led me to pharma, like a little more on that string of thought.
Yeah, so biomedical engineering. Again, really really enjoyed it. It taught me a lot about logic skills that would apply in a more business setting. And I'll talk a lot about that here in a few minutes. But really, kind of it was science based. It was science focused. I've always been a science guy. I still am. Still will always be one, right? Um, but pharma ended up being the perfect industry for me because, again, interested in science, interested in healthcare, and pharma was something I hadn't really researched a whole lot. Obviously, we are aware of pharmaceutical products, but never really had known much about the industry as a whole until kind of the late college years and just researching it to enter my career there.
And so no, so some of that research is like the job postings when you're looking for internships. Like, how did you get connected to that?
Yeah, so it's actually a funny story how I got my first job. Was It was one of those job searcher websites, and at this point, it was towards the end of senior year of college, and I just literally searched for biomedical engineering jobs near me.
Yeah, I don't know what
I
else you do.
so it was Indeed.com. I
Okay,
was just searching for it, and all of a sudden, I saw an opportunity for an internship in the Triangle with GSK, which is where I started my career. So it was
gotcha.
one of those Hail Mary job searches. Came across the posting, and I've been there in my career ever since. So
Yeah.
I always encourage the use of those platforms.
Well, for sure. I think, when you're a senior, you might have identified some of this interest. You identified the biomedical aspect. You're kind of learning what pharma is. But to actually get like a job with a title and a job description for a company, it's so hard to like figure out what that means. So I got my connection through the career fair. NC State's career fair is awesome. I think probably Chapel Hill students even go because it's so engineering focused. But and a couple of people I've talked to, like Vlad, had some idea. BMW, like we know what BMW does, but there's so many industries and companies out there that are kind of under the radar, just not you know business to consumer. So you don't buy products from them. That it's hard to have an idea of what they do. So it's yeah, whether it's Indeed or a career fair, or a parent or a counselor, like there has to be some connection because otherwise you're floundering or you take a risk.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very well made point too, because as a
Thanks.
biomedical engineer, you can go into research. You can kind of continue your education. A lot of my students, fellow students who pursued it and continued to, just went on to grad school, got their PhD in it, and really pursued that lab setting of it, which of course will always be there. But taking a degree like that and applying it in a corporate world, you don't always know how that's going to come across in terms of a role description or position title. And so that's where those applications or those platforms can really have benefit, because connecting the lines kind of behind the scenes with their algorithms.
Yes. So for mechanical, I felt that the course training kind of sets you at either design route or a research route or a manufacturing route.
Right.
So would you say biomedical was similar, that there were certain tracks or they were those tracks, and that the business kind of side of things is something that came more from an internship or working than from what school taught you?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say the two that stood out to me, honestly, were just more of a lab setting versus more of a business setting. Those were the two that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Again, just jumping into the business side of it, I think just having done that internship first, just to see, okay, would my skills translate? So as soon as I graduated, I started the internship right away. It was a way to get my foot in the door in the company, learn about the company, and learn, okay, I'm an intern right now, but what positions might be relevant to me and what I want to do, and how can I leverage my undergraduate degree? And so those were all of my thoughts as I started that internship. So highly encourage internships if you're in a stage like that, if you're trying to figure it all out and just get your foot in the door, a great way to do it.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. So after your junior year, you interned with GSK.
It was actually a graduate internship right after I graduated, and so it was that summer. I graduated 2014, started a couple weeks later with GSK, and have been there ever since.
That's an interesting way to do it. So I want to ask about that. But before we get there, did you have other internships during school that you either liked less or?
I did, and so those were actually pretty much every year in between during the summers I had in high school. I had a internship mostly based through the Carolina's healthcare system, now Atrium Health in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And so a couple of different things there where it ranged from, refurbishing hospital equipment to help third world countries build hospitals. So um, really great work that I really enjoyed. But in terms of what I wanted to do and how to bring that to my career, I think in between my junior and senior year of college, I interned at the Carolina Simulation Center, part of Atrium Health, and just got to see all of the simulation they do with helping doctors and surgeons kind of perform surgeries and everything on all of these super high tech mannequins, essentially, that were, blood was pumping through them. It was really incredible to see, and just that
Yeah.
type of work was so fascinating to me, and that's kind of what helped me see that there's a business side to doing some of that biomedical engineering work, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes total sense. So now when you applied for those, that was also kind of like a biomedical engineer applies for this position at a healthcare firm kind of thing. That's like all you need to do.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, kind of as I was navigating it, just now talking about it out loud, there's definitely like a common denominator there, but also just was applying for what I was interested in at the time. That simulation center internship was really cool and really
Just sounded
rewarding, but
cool.
just
Yeah.
kind of just applied for it and just wanted to see what it was all about, and that's where internships can be so helpful. Just to see what's all about. You might not like it, but it gives you an opportunity, say 2 to 3 months in the summer, to figure that out, and then you're never going to know looking at something or reading about it on paper versus actually trying it and just getting a feel for what it's like in person.
Yes, wise words. So it seems to me, to kind of recap, so mechanical engineering you pick because it's broad and you go all these different directions. Industrial is kind of in the same boat. So Jess Rose episode 8, I think. Go check it out. Went into
Absolutely.
healthcare, kind of navigated through that during college, during jobs. And biomedical, you had a little bit more of a decision at the outset and a little bit more specialty probably through coursework to lead you to healthcare, but
Absolutely.
same kind of end result. So now back to, you had that internship, you had that experience. Sounds really cool, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I Yeah, I mean, I sat in like a manufacturing area and did design and spreadsheets and read a lot of articles about sports. So it sounds like you had a better experience. And now you apply for the GSK thing. So just a minute on like that graduate internship. Was that tough for you to take instead of like a full-time job, or was that pretty normal? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so it was a paid internship. I think that was a big part of it as well. There's a lot of great unpaid internships that are out there, but this one was paid. It was definitely looking for a job, but I was also still looking for flexibility because I didn't know exactly where I wanted to take my career. And I think a lot of young professionals just finishing up their undergraduate are in this same boat. So, I took a risk, to be honest with you, just to see what it was like. A bunch of other friends were starting full time positions. This
Mhm.
one wasn't, but I went into it with the thought process, well, if I like it, I can use it as an opportunity to network, to meet the right people, and pursue a full time job. And that's exactly what happened. So, use it as a foot in the door. Definitely a little risky, but if you're still kind of unsure about where you want to go, a great path to take.
Yeah. So I hadn't really heard about that. We touched on rotational programs with Chris Morrow, whatever episode that is. And this is again kind of de-risking from both sides. Like, oh, I might not want to commit long term, and the company saying, oh, this guy might not be a fit. And what, 3 or 4 months or something?
Yeah, so that one was 3 or 4 months, and it's actually funny you say that because I remember talking to Chris about this too. I started full time through a rotational program after the internship, so it was kind of, yes, I started full time, but it was still meant to, okay, well, let's figure out what you like and what you might want to do when you get into a full long term position. So I joined a rotational program full time as well, and that's kind of how that was my first introduction officially into the company in the world of pharma.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that now that you say it. You might have had an opportunity to move at some point, and those are the things we talk about as friends instead of the nitty gritty
I
of
had to
work
give a
you're
list of 25 cities where to potentially move from. By the end of that list, I'm like looking at the map. I'm thinking, okay, where where would I live? I put Charlotte number one just because I'm from there, and it just happened to work out. I was honestly very surprised, but happy it worked out.
That yeah, so right, where you live is very important. So talk a little about the structure of the rotational program and what you did, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's changed a little bit, I think now. But my rotational program was 2 years in sales. So I did 2 years as a pharmaceutical sales representative, which was critical because it allows you to understand kind of the foundation of many pharmaceutical companies, just talking and interacting with healthcare providers, talking about medication, and when new information, clinical data comes out about all of that. So really, really great and rewarding experience.
So the whole program was designed towards sales. You
It
applied knowing
Mine, yes, was more
that. Okay.
sales focused. And I, being a science guy, I didn't know if I wanted to do sales. I didn't know if I would like sales whatsoever. I ended up loving it, but I would have never known that had I not done this program.
Okay. Yeah, we've had a couple salespeople on, bunch of outgoing people. So yeah, I remember you had like a company car or something. You were driving all over the place. What was that first year like?
I had the Ford Escape. I lived in Charlotte. I had the western part of North Carolina as my territory, so a lot of window time or windshield time, as they would say.
Yep.
So a lot of driving. satellite radio to hold me. I should have gotten into
That's
podcasts
great.
back then. That would have been the great opportunity to start listening to podcasts. But
Hey.
driving, talking to healthcare providers, and it was just a really, really great experience. Just getting out there and understanding the core of how the industry worked.
Yeah, I feel like you learn a lot from talking to a lot of different people. And if you're trying to sell them, you have to understand them, and then you have to understand the business, and you have to understand the product. And yeah, it's still probably more high level than a research position where you're getting real technical. Um, but yeah, I'm sure you learned a lot. That was good. And then that was a year, and then there was a next year in Raleigh. Is that right?
So that was 2 years. It was 2 years in the field. So this takes us to the end of 2016. And
Okay.
then for my next rotation, it was going to be in the RTP office for GSK, and I knew it was going to be a marketing rotation. So at the time, I moved up to Raleigh. This is January of 2017, almost 5 years ago now, which is crazy. I thought, yeah, I'll be in Raleigh for maybe a year, and then probably move back to Charlotte. I've been in Raleigh ever since. I've been, working in office at the company, and just really have really enjoyed it. Met my now fiance there, future wife. So
Oh,
Raleigh's
man.
definitely the home for right now. But yeah, marketing. It was definitely great to go from sales to marketing. So I started with that sales rotation, and I remember thinking, it would be really great if we had a marketing resource that went through X, Y, and Z, because I could pull that through in the field as a sales professional. You get to marketing and you have that mindset right away. Well, let me make that resource that I wanted to create and I wish we had. And then you find out literally why you could not do that. There's all kinds of, especially in pharma, it's a very highly regulated industry, and everything that's on a marketing resource has to go through legal approval, compliance, regulatory. There's all of these guardrails where you really have to, and rightfully so, make sure that they're crossed through. So um, understanding that process makes you realize, okay, well, now I can see the difference between sales and marketing, why you might not be able to just pull through something you want to use in the field. There's all of these different things, and seeing both of those perspectives it's really been enlightening for my career.
That is very relevant to my current position. Since I'm working for a small firm, sales and marketing kind of falls into the same pot. And there's very much a difference. However, there's very much a connection between the two where, right, you're in the field, you want something, you want to put a piece of paper down on a doctor's office, and it's like, oh, this answers all of the questions that me as the salesperson typically has to ask. But something
Absolutely.
like pharma would have a lot more compliance issues. So no, I totally get that. But that's cool. So then that was another 2 year rotation, and then after that you split. I don't actually think that's true. How did that
Yeah,
look?
so that was, I was in that rotation for actually about six months, where I found a full-time job. I offboarded from the rotational program and I went into sales operations. So that was kind of my progression towards where I was. I actually shifted back into marketing, but a little bit about kind of those last couple of years. I went into sales operations, which I thought was a really great natural next step after doing sales for a couple of years and just a little bit of marketing at the time. So I loved marketing. I wanted to continue it, but the rotation had finished and I was looking for the next step. And sales operations was a great blend of all of that, because my customer in a sales operations role are the sales professionals, and in turn, of course, the actual customers for the business. So my job was making sure they were equipped with all the tools, platforms, and systems they need to do their jobs and be successful. So that's sales operations in a nutshell. And I actually did that in two different roles over the course of about 5 years. So sales operations was kind of where I saw myself for definitely the bulk of my career to date. And I just actually recently, a few months ago, moved back over into marketing, still onboarding, getting up to speed there, but getting back into marketing because I always wanted to kind of continue that a little bit further, since I only had 6 months to try it out.
And what's the piece about marketing that interests you?
To me, honestly, it's the ability to contribute to a brand strategy, to interpret market research, to hear how customers and how the external world is viewing your particular product, and taking that and say, okay, well, how can we put a strategy around this product? How can we reach, in the case of pharma, how can we reach all of the people who could benefit from this product and from this treatment? So there's a lot of great ways to take that and define that strategy, where sales operations is a bit more like, okay, well, there's all of these issues, let's fix these issues, which is great. And that's, I think, where the engineering undergrad degree helped me a lot, because a little bit of those logic skills, even in a business setting, helped me dissect all of these complex processes, and figure out next steps to put an action plan in place in order to solve these complex problems. So I like that for a lot, but I wanted to get back towards the strategy definition, or defining the strategy.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like strategic work is more exciting than some other work. So sounds like you're in the
Absolutely.
same boat. And that leads us to the next step of Steven's young career, which is a little bit of coursework as well. Talk about how you arrived at the next program.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So after a few years of working full time, I always knew I wanted to go back and get my MBA. That's something that I always kind of had on the horizon. I never knew when the right time to do it would be.
Why? Why was it on your horizon?
It was, so being a science guy and then entering the world of business, I always wanted a little bit of that business educational foundation, right? The stuff that school can provide. You can get a lot of that on the job, right? You absolutely do, and I did. But I wanted some of the educational coursework to really kind of flesh out that foundation before I got too far along in my career, if that makes sense.
So was it just improved pay?
It wasn't just about improved pay. It was about learning a lot about. It's for learning a lot more about things like, finance
Sure.
and some of the classes that I just never took in undergrad because I was more science focused.
Yeah, I've had that thought too, and a couple other of our friends did business minors, which would give you something, but MBA is a
hmm
whole different approach. So anyway, yes, you decided to do it. You went to the same school, and now you're in the program. How's it going?
Well, how about I mention I'm a big fan of UNC Chapel Hill. That's big fan of the school. So of
Surprised
course,
you're not in Carolina Blue right now.
I know I should be, honestly. I should be, but being back there for the second time around in a grad school setting has been really great. Keenan Flagler Business School it's an incredible school. I'm doing their online program, a lot of flexibility. I think the reason I decided to do it over the last couple of years really is, the pandemic gave me some time to reflect, and was thinking to myself, now is as better of a time to do it than ever before. Working remotely, um, a lot of unknown in the world, and rightfully so. And now it's just it seemed like the right time, and so I jumped right in. I'm 1 year in. I've got about another year to go, and it's going by very quickly. But I will say, balancing that on top of a full time job, it's a bit more it's a bit more work than you're used to. So you have to grapple with that time management factor, which was a
Mm.
little difficult for me at first, but I've gotten it down to a good rhythm now, I would say.
Would you say down to a science?
Down to a science, I guess you could say.
Hey,
No pun intended.
so yeah, everyone hits the pandemic and reevaluates their life and where it's going and what they can do with all this free time.
Yep.
And Steven decided it was a good time for an MBA, which started remote and continues to be mostly remote, but I know you've got some in-person activities as well. So what do you mean by the pandemic? What is that? No, I'm just kidding. We do not need to go on that. What are your thoughts on COVID-19? We're not that kind of podcast. Definitely not.
Oh, I was like, he paused. Does he want me to jump in and answer this, or are we taking dumb it down in a completely different direction?
Hey, well, you're a pharmacist, right? No, I guess that's a little off too. Anyway, moving on. So your story going into your MBA, like I know through applications, you kind of have to have what you're looking to get out of it. What was that in kind of a nutshell?
It was actually a lot of what I had said a couple minutes ago was kind of my big focus is just the educational foundation. So I'll tell you a lot of random stories that have helped me already 1 year into the program. So for example, econ and finance. Now I took econ 101 in undergrad. It was a great course, but that was really all I really had as my backbone. And we're all young professionals. We're all looking to make smart investment decisions, and I felt like I could really benefit from some of that side as well. So just some of that formal education helped me build up my portfolio a little bit more in a way that tolerated risk in a much better threshold, now that I knew some of the logic behind it. So outside of
Nice.
work, but still in the world of investing, it helped me quite a bit and continues to do so. So that's one huge benefit, I would say.
Cool. Yeah, a ton of good life skills in addition to business skills.
For
And you're
sure.
still learning a bunch. I guess I'll let you toot your horn for a minute. There was one project that you were particularly successful at, correct? At your
Yeah,
MBA?
Oh, in the NBA? Yeah, so I'll talk
Yeah,
about this.
let's
If
go.
so there was a simulation which every group that was in this one specific class, it was a group project where we had a product. We were a company in this market, and there were two different markets. You could launch products, and it was really in-depth simulation. I really enjoyed it,
Like
obviously, but
Excel simulation, they had some variables set up, or there was a program, and they're basically saying tweak these variables to accomplish the best result. It was like a homework, or it was a project, class project, right?
it was a project. So every single week, we met as a group, decided, okay, what decisions do we want to do? It was a web-based application. We would log into it, and you could choose, okay, how much money do I want to spend on market research this week? How much money do I want to spend on advertising for the products? How much do I want to spend on salespeople to go out and promote the product? So it was very, very in depth. A lot of different variables that you could build into the equation. And my particular group and we were going through it. We were trying to probably made a couple of big risks at the decision at the beginning of the simulation, and we found ourselves in last place. And it's a competition, right? So each week, the numbers refresh at a given time, and you look and you see, okay, well, here are some of the companies that are doing really well, and
Hmm.
here's us all the way down at the bottom. And
And the goal is to increase revenue for this fake business, correct? That's what your main
Absolutely,
is.
you want to have the
Okay,
most revenue out of all of your competitors in the market. So to simulate a business setting in the real
sure.
world. And so what we did as a group is we took all of the variables, we opened up a massive Excel file, and I love this kind of stuff. Just reverse engineered the complete simulation and got it down to pretty much to a science, as you would say.
Let's go.
Where we figured out how all the variables interconnected. There's still always going to be an element of risk, right? Where you have to anticipate what your competitors are going to do, but we turned it all the way around from last place to, if you look on week to week earnings, the last couple of weeks in first place, which was a dramatic comeback. We're very proud of it. We had an MBA event actually a couple of weeks ago in person where we were talking about it, and it's just one of those things where
You got
it's
some attaboys.
it's funny, and like hearing myself say it out loud, I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking about this on a podcast. But that kind of stuff it's fun, and it was a rewarding experience, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth talking about because there's projects that
Well, thank you.
people get interested in and do well on, and that's kind of for a reason. And I'd usually ask this later, but like, what's your ideal project? And to me, Stephen combines, the tech side, which he's programmed and done the audio for videos and like definitely understands technology, with the healthcare side, which probably didn't help for this project, but you understand it's a business, and then the communication side, which is sales, marketing, strategy, all of that good stuff. So you're you're
Absolutely.
you're using all of those skills in your ideal project. You're working in a group setting. You're taking some risks. You're doing some programming. Like I feel like that lined up for you well now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well said. It really kind of sums up kind of what makes me tick, honestly, is merging all of those together. And like you mentioned, I will talk about this a minute, or I don't know if we want to talk about it in a few, but technology has always kind of been at the core of my life as well. And so just always been a huge fan of technology, and just watching it evolve a lot, especially over the last 10, 15 years. It's incredible kind of where we are now, and to see where we're going and where we're trending. And using that technology, there's no doubt it's going to continue to intersect and merge more with the business world. And there's a lot of opportunity there to take that, even in healthcare. You're seeing it really in every industry, to see kind of the uncharted territory that lies ahead of us.
Yeah, yeah. And by interested in technology, Steven means like building his own computer and like into crypto way before it was cool, and like always had the fancy app first, like Venmo. And
I was hoping you were going to say that. Back in 2012, I think, I'm telling Eric about Venmo. I'm like, you got to download this. We can just send money through the internet. Eric's like, wait, you put your credit card in here and send money via the internet? And now we use it all the time. But
right.
Eric always gives me credit for selling him on it first. So thank you, Eric.
I do. There may have been a dating app that you guys were ahead of the curve on too, but um, yeah, it's just, I'm always open to these things. Well, maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but until something becomes popularized, it's tough for it to be normalized, right? So Steven and John, his twin brother, who are both, techies together, always we're ahead of the curve on that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're like sitting at a bar and we're looking at Venmo. They're like, oh, just pay me back with this. And I'm like, okay, maybe, but unless everyone else
I'm
does
not
it,
putting my credit card
I'm
details in an app.
Right, right. And then, like you guys talking about Ethereum 4 years ago, it's like there's those people in your life where you're like, okay, I have a tech question. I'm going to ask them. For my dad, it's me. And for me, it's Stephen and John. So yeah, it all connects. And the technology on the smart building side is something I'm interested in at a high level, but more communicating it rather than getting my hands dirty with it. So Stephen's got
Absolutely.
both sides. Well, cool. I think that's a good summary of what makes you tick. I'm glad we got down to that. And I think we've gone through your career and work and school. Is there anything we missed?
That's, now that I'm in a marketing role again, we talked a lot about defining strategy and just, it's a good spot for me because it's different than what I was doing for the last 5 years. And I think one bit of advice I'd say for your viewers and listeners, Eric, is just don't be afraid to, if you find yourself in a comfortable spot in your career, is to take those risks, to try something new and to continue to stretch yourself, because that's how we grow as professionals, is to continue to try those new things. And so that'd be my one, piece of advice, is don't be afraid to try the next thing once you reach that point of comfort.
Yeah, and I think that's well said for a lot of our listeners and young professionals and people coming into the workforce, because honestly it's a good time to take a risk because you're coming into a fast growing sector. Pretty much as any engineer, you're pretty marketable. You might as well take a risk. You've got a fresh perspective on things. I think it's easy to be like, oh, I don't know anything, and not make your voice heard because you're young and you're tiptoeing. But yeah, if there's a time, it's now. And with the rate of technology change, there's some healthy risks you could take with that. And I think that, and now I'm the one rambling, but I think that the strategy piece is really important, because a lot of technical people get bogged down in the details, and you still need some direction through a strategy. And that's kind of the North Star for the company or the business unit or as a manager. That's very important. So I'll
Com-
echo what Steven said and expand on
Completely
that.
agree.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. It's funny. I said, Jess, you got anything else? And she threw in some advice as well. So some good nuggets from our accomplished young professionals on the Dub It Down podcast. So Stephen and I may or may not have been chatting after the pod and seeing if we could work this in. But we got another piece of advice or a connection for you. Take it
Yeah,
away.
and so this one goes back between the connection between the MBA and how that's kind of helped my career. And I've been with one company my entire career, which has been incredible. But after so many years, you think, okay, is this the way my company does things? Is this industry specific, or is it broader than that? And talking with a lot of my peers in my MBA program, I've realized a lot of the problems that I might face in a sales operations job are very quite similar to how a tech company sales operations manager might face the exact same situation. So having those conversations and realizing that just because I'm in one industry or in one specific position, that's not necessarily unique, and you can seek mentors or folks in different industries to talk about how to address some of those problems, find commonalities, and bring it all together. So that's been really cool.
I see. So you're saying you're seeing the parallels between different businesses regardless of industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So many parallels exist. Now, granted, there's always going to be some differences, but there's a lot of parallels. And we were talking a little bit about sales and marketing as well, and just talking about how there's a lot there. And in the world of pharma, that's one thing, but there's a lot of sales versus marketing. I wouldn't frame it up as a versus, right? Because it's such a collaborative effort.
Agree.
But the salespeople, it's easy to say, oh well, if we only had this from marketing, and the marketing is like, oh well, if the salespeople could pull it through, it's a team effort, and that I think is universal, to see it all as one team and how we can sell something together.
Is that kind of the role of sales operations?
In some ways, absolutely, because you often find yourself as the liaison and connecting a lot of internal stakeholders who might not interface with the field all too much. And in sales operations, you're talking to the field every single day, and you're finding what's relevant, and you're connecting the dots wherever they exist. So in a lot of ways, yeah, absolutely,
So it is in a sense, but not fully defined. Interesting. Yeah,
for sure.
that's cool. Well, now I will segue into our Q&A session. And my favorite one I'll start with is, what's been your biggest screw up?
So this it's a great question, right? Always. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you just said that, Eric, is I'm going to jump back to my time in sales operations,
I
and
love it.
I love to help others, and I make that very very clear in a business setting. I'll tell people I'm always happy to help because it's true. I want to help out. I want to see what issues there are and how to overcome them. So there was a point about a year and a half ago, I'd say, where I was volunteering to help and on a couple of different projects, but they all coincidentally hit their peak all at the same time. So all of a sudden, because I had volunteered and I was jumping in to help, I'd reached a point where it was definitely overwhelmed with so much going on. There was a lot of different things going on. So I in turn had to, talk with my managers, figure out kind of, okay, well, how do I prioritize? How do you prioritize when everything comes across as this is extremely urgent for my particular team? And in operations, you're faced with a lot of those, right? Because a lot of people want to loop in operations. You want to be an active participant of everything you can be. But when you've got so much going on and the need to prioritize is there and not necessarily clearly defined, I just reached that point where I really needed to take a step back, look at the entire picture, and figure out, okay, for my particular role and my scope and what I'm doing on right now, what is the biggest thing that I need to prioritize, and then just kind of going down the list from there. So it took me reaching that point of feeling a little bit overwhelmed to have the courage to step back, to ask for a little bit of help in terms of prioritization and to really just kind of think it through. So my biggest screw up, just in summary, is just reaching that point, not knowing when to take a step back and reprioritize.
Sure. That is a very diplomatic answer from Steven. This could be an interview. My biggest weakness is that I care
I
too much.
care too much.
But no, like for real, you're coming in, you want to make a difference, you want to take on extra responsibility, and at some point, probably if you're doing it right, you got to take a step back. So
It's like, be
cool.
careful what you wish for, because sometimes, a lot of those, sometimes you might sign up for something and nothing ever comes of it, right? It's just a small project, or it takes, a couple hours tops. And then all of a sudden you're on several different work stream calls. Everything's urgent. Everything's, it can be tough. So, make
Yeah,
sure you know what you're signing up for, and you know that you have the capacity to truly do it and help out in the fashion where you're most valuable.
like it. Take some risks, step back when you have to.
Exactly.
Cool. I've got a couple other ones. Favorite class or project? I'm going to nominate your answer for you and be that MBA project, or of course, it's a chemical bond.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to high school on that one. The chemistry
Let's
videos,
go.
definitely check them out.
Yeah, when chemical bond season hits again, we see a spike every semester, every year.
I got a comment actually a couple of weeks ago. In an eighth grade class, it was shown, and apparently this eighth grade class had watched several chemistry videos on chemical bonds, and
Hmm.
our video, Eric, was voted the number one. And this is 11 years old, so we're competing against 11, 12, 13 years of music videos teaching people about chemical bonds, and ours is still right up there. So it stands the test of time. So
That's
very excited.
awesome. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, it stands the test of time. YouTube allows for that kind of thing to stay up there. And on top of that, we got like a 200 on that project. So that was
We
a good
did.
thing as well. Shout out Mr. Standish.
Shout out, Mr. Standish.
Um, so another one, I'm assuming you have like a couple mentors, even if it's not one specific person. But what are they doing that you are not and should be?
So for this one, I'd say definitely a couple mentors who I've learned a tremendous amount from. And this goes back to the pandemic. And when the pandemic first started, I will say just everyone was navigating going, or for me, if you're in a corporate role, just adjusting to 100% remote work, right?
Hmm.
When we're used to being in the office. And in the office, you can easily say, hey, you're talking to someone and could get a coffee with them, could get lunch. It's very more accessible to do that. But all of a sudden, you're in this remote working world, and it's so much more difficult to have those networking conversations. And so, my mentors challenged me, even in the pandemic, to continue to network. They were always networking internally, just to try and determine new stakeholders, new roles that you want to look at. Networking, as we all know, is super important, and even in the world of remote work, you have to carve out time for it. I wasn't right at the beginning of the pandemic, but started to again once my mentors challenged me to do so. it's, for example, Eric, let's say I wanted to get a coffee with you. I could just walk up to you in the office and say, hey, you want to go grab a coffee in the next couple of minutes? And that's something we could do. But in the world of remote working, I have to send you a message, wait for your response. We might have to set up a meeting. Calendars are booked because everyone's got a lot more meetings because we're in a virtual world. So just it's more difficult, I would say, remotely. But since we're in this hybrid working world, and will likely continue to be in for quite some bit, you have to carve out time for networking in any circumstance.
So is it your boss or just someone you work with that's done a good job of doing that and sets a good example?
Yeah, it's a previous boss is it remains a good mentor for me. I've got a couple of mentors who are back in the sales side, who are sales leaders, and I admire their careers and their advice tremendously. And so
Cool.
they're always encouraging networking. They say they're doing it as well. They're ascending the ranks of leadership in the company as well. So always great to hear that from someone who's got proven results behind it.
Yeah, and a little just to expand, but Stephen has now been at GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, for at least 5 years. And I think that a lot of millennials like us are quick to jump to the next best thing. And that can be a good avenue. But when you are with one company for a while, I think the mentorship is an important part of it because not only do you know the company better and kind of the titles and who's the best to talk to, but you just have built relationships with more people and got your name out there. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you have those resources. Just a personal topic. So what's like something you care about personally? And I'll nominate an answer with the DJing stuff.
I was you read my mind.
Let's go.
So as we just mentioned a few minutes ago, big into technology, and so that over the years has taken shape in a lot of different ways. And I'm always been interested in audio production engineering. If you watch those chemistry videos, you'll see when I first learned about autotune. Always
And it
just
was
been
good.
interested. And it was fun. You just slap a
You
couple
figured it
effects on there and hope for the best.
Yeah, yeah. This is like on desktop computers in 2010. This isn't your Musically app or TikTok or anything. Steven knows
this
what he's
this was when autotune was cool, so it was cutting edge stuff. I will say.
doing, basically.
But in its latest form, and Eric, you know this, in the college years, would definitely dabble with DJing, and just always loved the thought of merging different genres, the seamless transition between two different tracks, and so dabbled with it in college a little bit on and off over the years. Always had the equipment, but never, over the last 5 6 years or so, just hadn't really done a whole lot with it. And then the pandemic hit. All of a sudden, I wanted to revisit an old hobby, got some new equipment into the DJing world, and have been really really stepping up my game. So really just enjoying DJing, and I've played at a couple different places over the last few months and just really really enjoying it. So that's how my love for technology and music has taken its latest shape.
That's sweet. Do you have a newly released DJ name for the podcast, or is that on the DL?
Oh, it is not something I want to share public. I'm just kidding. I'll share it. So I have a DJ alias named Charles Crane.
Charles Crane.
Everything DJ related will be under the new name. Everything professional related will be Steven.
Just Charles Crane. I like
Yeah.
it.
Self-titled.
There it is.
Thanks
That's
for
my
the
new
effect.
podcast board with the applause. I mean, this is our live audience. Cool.
Live
So
studio audience.
live studio audience. So yeah, Steven DJing has been fun for a number of years. We've been to a couple shows together, and I know he's wanted to actually play a show and has accomplished that. So looking forward to that. So that's something you want to promote. Anything else you want to promote? LinkedIn, articles?
Um, LinkedIn, please feel free to connect with me. If anyone wants to connect, I'm always happy to share my experience. So if you're kind of in the same boat I was, if you're doing an engineering degree but not sure you want to be in the lab side or the research side, but want to transition into business, I'm always happy to help navigate that. So if you want to reach out to me to talk it through, would be happy to do so.
What a nice guy. So I will answer the last question for you. And Stephen is certainly open to being a mentor if others have questions. And I think that, I mean, I'm always curious about what the MBA program looks like and where he's taking that. And I'm glad I have him as a sounding board. So happy to have a platform to let you tell your story, Stephen. I think it's interesting and it's been fun.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and it's an honor. This podcast has been awesome, Eric. So thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.
That's a wrap.